Alright everybody, we're at the little Golden Gate Bridge by Beaver. Check out how high the water is, everybody. It is crazy. It's almost over the bridge. It's not, but it's almost. And you can see as we ride by, look how close that water is, folks. It is nuts how close that is. They've had water over this bridge, but this time it's not over it. They've opened the dam up a little bit and they've tried to go through it. So, hey everybody, welcome to Jerry and Jamie Tune Up. This is Jerry, and we are out putting some miles on the new NT1100. And while we're doing that, I'm going to talk about my buying experience for the NT1100. I will say it wasn't the best, and I'll explain why. It was kind of cumulative looking around here, start looking around Northwest Arkansas. So the first thing I do is I go to Sunrise in Rogers, and those guys, I have really become a fan of that dealership. They've taken great care of my Kawasaki. They work on my KTM. They've done some work on my wife's Honda scooter. I love the guys and girls over to Sunrise. So I start talking to them. They had one in, so I called them. They had one. When I got there, they sold it. Okay, that's cool. That's understandable. Somebody had already bought it. So I said, hey, when do you think you'll get another one? They said, oh, probably 25, 30 days. I said, okay, well, cool, I'll do that. So I kept checking. Couldn't give me a date, which I get, right? The Honda's the one shipping them. So I then so I said, okay, so I put down a deposit, and on the prerequisite that, hey, if Jamie doesn't like it, I put down $500. I said, if Jamie doesn't like it, you guys can keep $250, but give me $250 back, because you'll be able to sell it. And I also said, look, I don't know why you guys aren't ordering these things without bags. Nobody's going to buy a sports touring motorcycle without the panniers. So they agreed, and they ordered the panniers, and they have the top case, right? Unfortunately, they don't have the bike. So we wait, we go another 30 days, and now, folks, not that I'm anxious to get a new motorcycle, but the timeline, we're getting ready to go on a long trip to the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be gone, we're going to ride motorcycles up there. The timing was starting to run out, right? So kept asking them. They said, well, it's supposed to be here on June 5th, or it's supposed to ship June 5th, excuse me. I said, okay. Well, then another one of my friends, Dennis, thank you, sir, he sends me a picture of an NT1100 in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, which is about 120 miles from my house, right? So so Jamie and I jump in the car and go over to Bartlesville. It's there. They have it. I sat on it. She sat on it. She seemed to like it. They gave me a pretty good deal for my Kawasaki Versus. So as you guys know, this is not a very good seller's market for used motorcycles. It's a great buyer's market, but not a seller's market. So they gave me a number that was kind of what I was looking for. I knew I wasn't going to get the highest number because it's got 50,000 miles on it and all that, but they did a good job, took care of me. So they gave me an offer. So then I decided I would call Rogers and say, look, do you guys know when you're getting this bike in? Because I wanted to deal with Sunrise because they've been really good. And I said, hey, do you guys, what's the story? Do you think you're going to get it? They said, well, still don't know. It's not on the books that they're going to ship. Well, they had been a little leery to give me an offer on the Versus because they didn't know how many miles it was going to be, and they didn't know how the tires were going to be, all that sort of thing. So I call them. I said, hey, I'm at Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'm staring at an NT1100, and here's what they're offering me for my Versus. Can you guys match that offer? And I talked to a gentleman. He goes, hey, I'm not a sales guy. Let me get with my sales guy and he'll call you back. Well, we waited about 20 minutes, and believe it or not, another guy walks into the Bartlesville, Oklahoma store, and he's looking at the 1100. And so now Jamie and I are like, well, we got to decide what we're going to do. So I said, okay, we're going to go ahead and take this 1100. But again, they didn't have the bags, which, why do people sell sports touring motorcycles that come with bags? And I guess shame on Honda. Just put the bags on the bike and raise the price, the $2,000 that you're going to raise it, and just sell it like that. Because like I said, nobody's buying this motorcycle without the bags. So they said, yep, we'll order them for you. We'll get the key thing. You just have to pay for the bags, which I thought was weird too, because I'd already said I was buying the bike, already signed the piece of paper that I was buying the motorcycle, and but they still said, no, you need to order the bags, which was a little frustrating. They said they were burned in the past, and I'm like, well, okay, it's $2,000 and I've already signed the paperwork. I'm buying the motorcycle. And so they wouldn't budge off that, so I did that, which was fine. Just gave me a little more down payment. And then they ordered the bags and the top case. So they said they should be here. We did this on Thursday of last week, and they said, well, this week should be here. The bags should be here by Friday. We'll start putting them on. You can come by and pick up the bike on Wednesday, because they said the latest they'll get the bags is on Tuesday. I said, okay, that's fine. Don't hear anything. So on Saturday, I call back the sales guy. I say, hey, what's going on with everything? And they said, well, we've got the panniers, we've got the top, and we're waiting for the top case. And I said, okay, is everything, good? Yep. Oh yeah, no problem. We'll see you on Wednesday. So the weekend goes by, and now it's Tuesday, and still haven't heard that they've gotten everything, right? So we decide, so I call them again. Hey, do we have the bags and everything? And he hems and haws, and he says, yeah, we do, but the bad news is we tried to rekey the top case, and we jimmied it up, and now we got to order more lock sets. So I wasn't frustrated that they made the mistake and they did that. I was frustrated that nobody called me to let me know what was going on. In either case, I seem to be calling them. It just seems weird that you're trying to sell a $14,000 motorcycle and I have to be the one to reach out. But I was like, okay. He's like, but the worst comes to worst, you can take the panniers and we'll have to figure out what to do with the top case. So we show up yesterday, which was great. Got there, and they've got the cylinders and everything. They're trying to rekey everything, which is great. So so they come back and they say, well, we finally got the cylinder drilled out of the top case. We're still, I know you're coming back tomorrow for an oil change, so we'll have everything for that. So today I'm just putting some miles on the bike so I can get it ready to get the oil change for the 600 mile. I'm not going to have 600 miles on it, probably going to have about 450, but I need it for my trip, so I'm just going to go ahead and have them do everything at that time. That's why I'm out riding now. And we signed the paperwork and no problem, right? I guess what's frustrating is, again, with the Bartlesville, Oklahoma guys, is didn't communicate whether they had the bags in, whether they got it, whatever, The sales guy's nice. I'll be honest with you, I knew more about the motorcycle than they did, which I get. They sell a lot of side-by-sides and ATVs and that sort of thing, but I had to laugh because he said, well, do you want me to walk you through the bike? And then he said, well, you probably know more about than I do, and which I'm pretty sure I did, which is not a big deal, right? But the communication part is a big deal. If you're trying to sell somebody something, then make the commitment to keep them informed, right? And let them know what's going on. So I've got the bike. that's the good news, right? Oh, let me tell you about Heartland Honda in in Springdale, which now they just got bought out by Woods Power Sports. So I think that's a good thing, because Woods has done a great job with our KTM and stuff, and we had bought Jamie's little Kawasaki from there. I call up Heartland. They've got one. Yep, we've got one in stock. I'm like, great. What's the price? And they said, well, you know, what do you... I said, I want bags, top case, all that, right? Outline everything that I want. And he says, okay. They come back, and the price is $16,000. And I'm like, okay. I said, can you send me the quote so I can see everything that's broke down? He's like, sure, no problem. So he sends me the quote, and on the quote, there's a destination fee of $950. There's a freight fee for $650. There is a fee to install the bags for $700. And then they raised the price of the bike over MSRP. So I call the guy back, and I'm like, hey, I'm a little confused here. You know, these numbers are kind of high. Here's what I already knew what Rogers was selling it out the door for $14,400, same thing I paid for at Bartlesville. And I'm like, well, why are you $1,500 more? And I know why, because of all the fees. So he sends back, he goes, yep. He says a lot of people don't, when they get here, they don't build the bikes with a tech. We use a tech. That's why it's so expensive. Which makes no sense at all to me, right? Your techs build bikes all the time, right? You can't sell the motorcycle until you build the motorcycle. So now I'm getting a little frustrated, and I said, well, what about the destination fee? Yep, that's just what it is. It's a new bike. It's what it is. I'm like, okay. I said, here, I've got 4 dealerships that I'm talking to, and nobody's that high. So he said, well, send me what you want to pay, and we'll see what we can do. I was like, okay. So I cut the destination fee in half. I cut the freight fee in half, and I'm not paying to have them install the bags on a bike that they're selling to me. So I cut that. Nobody else said they were going to charge me to put the bags on, and nobody did, right? So I send him the thing, and he goes, and this was the response from the sales guy. Well, if you can find it for less than that or that price, then you should go buy it there. Now, let me tell you, folks, this is the reputation that dealership had, is that they don't deal with anybody. And look, they must be in business for a reason, but wait, they're not anymore because they got bought out. But I wanted to buy local, and these people didn't even want to deal. And I don't know whether they don't realize there's a lot of competition in Northwest Arkansas now, and it's only going to get worse when you add BMW and Ducati coming. Woods Power Sports has every brand. Sunrise has every brand. So there's a lot of competition, and for you to have that attitude, it just really turned me off. So again, I've been rambling enough. It's frustrating when they don't let you ride a motorcycle anymore, which to me is crazy, before you buy it, unless you know the dealership. Now, shout out to AJ at Plano Kawasaki Suzuki. If they sold Honda, I'd have definitely bought one from her or from them. They've always been great. They're still my favorite dealership on the planet, and I would never say anything bad about that dealership. They are wonderful people, and they run a great business. They just don't sell Honda. So, you know, it's not being able to ride it. One dealership wants to charge me to install the bags on a bike that I'm gonna buy, which is weird. You know, jacking up the price. I get that, jack up the price, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I know about sales, and new motorcycle sales is not what's carrying a dealership. What's carrying a dealership is service and parts. And if you buy a motorcycle from somebody, you're usually going to get the bike serviced and you're going to get your parts from that dealership, which only makes sense. Unless, of course, you buy it in 125 miles away. I'm not going 125 miles to get all my services done. So, oh yeah, that takes me back to Rogers and Sunrise. I went back, talked to the general manager and the sales manager and the salesman all in person because I felt bad. I didn't want them to think I had been stringing them along. And just said, look, here's the situation. I was up against my timeline. You guys still don't have the motorcycle. I said, you can keep the $250 if you can just give me back. And I said, you don't even have to give me back the $250. If you just want to credit it to me, I will use it in your parts and service department, and then that way you guys know you're getting the money. And the guy was the general sales manager was very nice. He said, no, he said, we're going to refund you your money. We'll cut you a check. We really appreciate you. We know you're going to get your service done here on your other motorcycles, which at the time I was already getting my wife's scooter stuff done. And they understood the relationship was more about just selling one motorcycle, that I was going to do all my maintenance and service there and buy my parts from there, and I buy my tires from there. So they understand good business, and they made that decision, and I will be loyal to them as long as I can. The Heartland dealership just didn't have a clue. Bartlesville was great, and I think part of it is they're just not used to selling a lot of motorcycles, which is fine. So I guess my buying experience, it was half good, half bad. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. I mean, I have to say I'm very spoiled with AJ and the gang at Kawasaki and Suzuki and Aprilia, those guys in Plano. Just took such good care of me. Very upfront, transparent, just good people. So I can't say enough. But all right, folks, I'm done rambling. That's my buying experience for the NT1100. I am so glad I got it. I'm really enjoying it. But now I'm going to go ahead and finish putting some more miles on this thing. So I will talk to you all soon. Talk to you later. Bye.